All right. Let's shift to baseball real quick. And I want to talk about this real quick. I got this scheduled, and we're going to obviously talk about that. But let's talk a little bit about Corbin Burns. So Corbin Burns signs, it's official, a monster deal with the Arizona Diamondbacks this week. So I think it was 7 years, 210 he signed for. Um, what did Burns sign for? I think it was 7 years, 210. I think it was monstrous what he signed for. Look, fans. Burns was not going to sign here, I think, for the most part. I think there was several factors into that why he didn't sign. I don't necessarily buy it when I hear players say that they want to go on. It was 6 years, 210 for Burns. I don't necessarily buy it when I hear players say they want to sign at home. That's kind of crazy. What kind of numbers? Talking, he could fly anywhere. $35 million a year. Some of it is state tax, etc. But I think the bigger thing was I'm not sure the Orioles made any offer, a serious offer. I think they didn't waste their time. Like if Burns had to come to them in this camp, I think what it was, I can't get a good read on Michael I, but I think he would have made an offer at that point. They didn't make an offer. He signed with the West Coast. The Giants were waiting for a time. I don't think the Orioles even bothered to make a serious offer. I think they would have liked to have signed him. So I think they kept the door open if it happened. But I'm not sure there was much of a door with Burns. I think I'm a little surprised how many fans thought it was, though. A lot of you thought Burns was going to sign. I don't know why. That was going to be super expensive to actually do that. Even if he had been their first choice, and I don't know that he was. Um, he had other bidders. He didn't grow up here. His career wasn't here. He was traded here. So I didn't think Burns was going to sign. So let's see if the Orioles are going to sign Jack Flaherty or anything else in the offseason. We will see about that. Now let's get to it. Off season, deep here in the off season. Next week, we're going to start our top 10 list of each position going into the season, getting a little closer to spring training. Now that we're here in January, spring training starts at the end of February. So we're going to start our top 10 list. Season starts in March. Who were the top 20 Orioles of all time? So, is what it says it is. Factors into the list sometimes. Winning matters. So that kind of takes some of the current guys out of it. Not more recent here. Winning matters. Longevity matters. Awards matter. MVP, Cy Young, that stuff that matters. And have you, uh, you know, so awards, MVP, Cy Young, winning was the Orioles. Tenure with the Orioles, longevity factors in a little bit as well, especially if you're an all timer. All right. So, who are the top 20 guys ever? Flanny, the last guy to ever pitch at Memorial Stadium, had about a long career with the Orioles. It was kind of tough to pick between him, Dennis Martinez, a lot of those guys of that era, my first era really watching growing up. But I think Flanny definitely pitched in that era, came back a little bit later, the 90s, Flanny years. Shout out to the late Mike Flanagan. I definitely got to put Flanny in the top 20, one of the all-time wins leaders. Not an elite pitcher, but steady for a long time. That's definitely one way I'll describe Mike Flanagan as well. Nick Markakis. Um, I would really have loved to see the Angelos be the Rubenstein group been around when Nick Markakis was here. Loyal soldier, long time, but he was kind of in that era where they didn't really win much. So I think that's the reason why he's lower. But he was an Oriole. Sometimes we know it. Like I feel that way. Usually, like basketball example, LeBron James doesn't feel like a Laker. Some guys don't feel like this franchise. Nick Markakis felt like a Baltimore Oriole all the way through, even though he finished with Atlanta, had some success there, but excellent out in right field. Nick Markakis, I have him at 19. Another guy, a little bit of a victim of injuries, kind of cut him short, and not winning a lot during his era. But Brian Roberts, I think, was fantastic for the Orioles. I think the thing I think about him, he was the leader of the group that we had at the time. You think about a guy like Brian Roberts, Trey Mancini didn't make it on the list, but these guys were guys who kind of held it together as well. I think had it not been for some of the injuries he had late, he had several years late where he was fighting injuries. He really could have been much higher on the list as well, but it kind of cut short. But a very good second baseman leadoff hitter. He was really the last to get a good sized contract too, like as well. Really, that I was kind of after him. It kind of stopped. I think I don't think there was one after him as far as a multi-year deal with that. We're still waiting on multi-year deals for Adley and Gunnar Henderson. Bobby Grich. Some of you younger guys maybe not known this, but you love the name Grich. Great offensive player, probably as good as an offensive player for many years at second base as they had. Not a long tenure, but very productive on the offensive side. Good offensive second baseman. I think like the numbers with Roberts and him are very comparable, but he won more games than Brian did. So, or a team is better. So I'm going with Bobby Grich, number 17. Good offensive player, good for a long time with California as well. But I have him at number 17. Paul Blair. My mom, if she's watching this, is going to be loving because Paul Blair and Boo Powell are two of her favorites of all time. Excellent offensive player for so many years. He was. Definitely one of the best center fielders the Orioles ever had. Some would say he's the best. I have him at 16, but I think the era the Orioles won, the guy at the top of the order, excellent defensively. When you talk about Paul Blair, you could argue one of the best defensive players the Orioles ever had was Paul Blair, roaming center field, number 16, Tippy. Tippy. Tippy Martinez. Love the leg kick. I had to do a picture with the leg kick with Tippy. Orioles closer for 10 years. Definitely the 83 closer when the last time the Orioles won the World Series. Didn't have a ton of saves, believe it or not, because he wasn't, I don't think, or a reliever for 10 years. I think that's more accurate. I don't think he was the closer for 10 years, but definitely a long run with the Orioles as well. Excellent reliever. I think one of the better relievers I think the Orioles ever had as well. For the longest time, you said Tippy was the best reliever they had. Mark Belanger. I can't put up anything with the Orioles without somebody telling me how good Mark Belanger was. Defensively, he was terrific. Definitely, the glove was there. Him next to Brooks Robinson was fantastic. Definitely, the glove was there. I think it was 8 Gold Gloves. I'm not sure, but he won a lot of Gold Gloves. Great defensive player, good offensive player. Not great offensive player, but I think definitely top two. One of the better Orioles of all time. Definitely defensively, maybe there wasn't a better one that we've ever had than Mark Belanger, certainly in the infield as well. The B, Al Bumry. Here's another guy, 10 years with the Orioles, the center fielder for so much of the success they had in the 70s and early 80s. I loved watching him. He had great speed. Like they don't. I wish we had more guys like this in the league now, to a certain extent. Guys like Rock Raines and Ricky Henderson, all rest in peace, and guy, who ran the bases. You always had a guy who could set the tone. That's what Bumry did for so many years. Set the tone at the top of the order, played great center field for so many years, and the Orioles won a lot of games while he was there. Bumry, I think 13. The Otter. I can't wait to talk to Greg Olson one day. That's a contract. We're going to start doing interviews this year with players, and one of the ones on my list to reach out to is the Otter Greg Olson. That curveball out of sight, man. I've never seen anything like Greg Olson's curveball. I think again injuries probably he's got more saves than anybody in Orioles history, but I think the injuries and probably maybe derailed it where he could have really been a Hall of Famer in everything says, but he unhittable. That curveball when that fastball was going, Otter number 12. Brady Anderson. I'm a little surprised there's not more love for Brandon Walsh here. Brady Anderson. Um, I saw him for years as kind of the lieutenant to Cal on the roster. He was the second longest tenured guy, long tenured. There's not a lot of love for Brady as much as I think it is, but the numbers bear it out. Worried about him. Maybe he took steroids. I don't know that. But I thought Brady was terrific as well. I think he was kind of not quite a bummery slash power hitter slash tone setter as well. But I thought Anderson was really good throughout the course of his career. Adam Jones, win loss is the only reason he's 10. This was the guy I think, if the modern day, the young people are looking at it, this is the face of the franchise as well. Glad to see that they retired it, that they bring him back. I'm hoping that they go ahead and retire his jersey at some point. Adam Jones, I thought, was the guy for the Orioles for so many years in center field. Great power hitter, hit for average. He just recently retired. So Adam Jones, I thought, was fantastic. I would like to have seen him retire as an Oriole as well. I mean, really retire. I mean, not just retire the one-day contract thing, but I really would have liked to have seen that worked out as well. Couple more. Boog Powell. Got rid of Boog's barbecue and the great barbecue out there. Boog, I thought, was an excellent old school power hitter. Just swing for the fence. Everything they tell you not to do, that's what Boog did. Boog was a fantastic power hitter as well. Boog, I think the success they had, the greatest Oriole era of success, Boog was a large part of it. These two are next. Mike Cuellar, I think, was fantastic. I think definitely you talk about the greatest rotation, maybe in Oriole history, one of the greatest rotations in baseball history. Mike Cuellar was absolutely a part of it. I cannot separate him and Dave McNally. Same thing. That rotation that they had, the reason they had so much success is because they had so many great years of these guys. Two of the all-time leaders in wins. Dave McNally and Mike Cuellar were fantastic. The Moose, Mike Mussina. I loved him, man. He was the ace of my coming up of Orioles, right? When I was in my 20s and a young guy watching the Moose mow him down, again, wish that he'd stayed the Oriole his whole career. But I think he won 19 games, I think, as many times as anybody. He was fantastic as well. Knew how to pitch, kind of like like you saw with Burns last year. People are worried about Burns' velocity. No, he just knows how to pitch. Right? He's saving his stuff. He always keeps his stuff. Moose was always in control on the mound. He had excellent location, good stuff to go with it. He would use it when he needed it, and a lot like Burns. I think like what you see. Moose was terrific. Eddie Murray. Eddie. One of the tragedies is they couldn't have Eddie and Cal play for years. Kind of got into a beef with the owner. Question. People think Edward Bennett Williams was a racist, didn't want a black player. I don't know. But I know Eddie, I think, is one of the greatest hitters of all time. No question about it. Murray, I think, was my favorite Oriole when he was there growing up. I wanted an Eddie Murray jersey, 33. Remember asking my mom for Eddie Murray jersey. I thought Eddie was a fantastic hitter, a fantastic contact hitter as well. Hit for power, but he was a fantastic contact hitter. Rest in peace, the great Frank Robinson. I think he was one of the most influential black athletes of all time. I think not as much as Jackie Robinson, but certainly you talk about a guy as a black man that, with respect and honor, and a lot of during a times where there was racial disharmony and everything like that. Oh, and by the way, he was a tremendous home run hitter, MVP in both leagues. I think he's for all time. Former Orioles manager, former Orioles assistant GM. I think one of the greatest baseball men of all time. Brooks Robinson, a lot of people call him Mr. Oriole. Absolutely no problem with that. We lost Brooks Robinson not that long ago. I think Brooks, the greatest defensive third baseman in the history of the game. I think he's 16 Gold Gloves. the greatest Oriole era of success between the late 60s and the early 80s. Brooks was there for a lot of that. Brooks played 20 seasons with the Baltimore Orioles. He's fantastic. I thought, too, he's really good on the booth. That's kind of like my first memory. He was kind of retired when I was growing up watching, but him and Chuck Thompson doing the games really always stays with me. I thought he was much better. Kind of got had that old country folksy like tone, but he was really smart, brilliant of the game. Jim Palmer, the greatest winner in the history of baseball. He's like 70 plus years old, and he could look like he could steal my wife. Like, he still looks tremendous to be 70 plus years old. Jim, I thought there isn't a smarter guy who's ever known the game of baseball and pitching more than Jim Palmer. I think Palmer, is a fantastic announcer. 200 some odd wins for the Orioles. The Orioles' success started with him and ended with him. When he left in 83, that was pretty much the down era of the Orioles. They had to build themselves back up until about 97. I think they never really could replace Jim Palmer. I think that was what it was. I think Palmer, fantastic as well. Underwear model. Women used to like him, etc. And I think still with the organization. I think he's been with the organization, I think 60 years. Outstanding, but not more than the Iron Man, Cal Ripken. Superhuman. I just cannot believe it still. After 20, we're at 30 years now, I think, since he broke the record. I still can't believe it. How good Cal Ripken was. Never missed a game, played shortstop, played third base, was a leader of the team. While he was doing an Ironman streak, stayed for an hour every night to sign autographs for fans who were standing there waiting just to talk to him. Never. I think the only flaw in Cal's game, I think he played too much. I think he started to wear down. Even when he stopped playing the everyday streak, I think he even had a second run there. Outstanding. Number one of all time. No surprise. Cal Ripken. All right. We'll see you after the Ravens and Browns. Thank you very much for joining us on the Ravery Sports Podcast. Enjoy all the games. You have a great day.